Okay, retirement planning. I know it's not like the most thrilling thing to think about, but
Well, maybe not thrilling, but
yeah,
definitely important.
super important, right? It's about, figuring out how to live the life you want after you're done working. And these days, that means getting a little creative with your planning.
Absolutely. The old playbook doesn't always cut it anymore. You need to think outside the box, especially with all the economic uncertainty we're facing.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today, a strategy that might surprise some folks. Gold IRAs. Now, hold on. Before you think, oh, that's just for rich people, we've got a whole guide on this, plus some really interesting stories of regular people using gold IRAs to plan for retirement.
Yeah, I think the word gold throws some people off. It makes them think of like treasure chests and pirates, but a gold IRA is a serious financial tool.
Okay, so let's demystify it. What exactly is a gold IRA, and how's it different from a regular IRA with stocks and bonds?
So a gold IRA is a self-directed IRA, which means you have more control over what you invest in. But instead of holding stocks or bonds, it holds actual physical gold, like gold bars and coins.
So you actually own the gold. It's not just like a number on a screen.
Exactly. And that's a big part of the appeal for a lot of people. It's tangible, but it's not just about feeling good. There are some solid financial reasons to consider a gold IRA, especially now.
Well, I've heard the term hedge against inflation thrown around a lot, but what does that even mean in real life? How does gold actually do that?
Think of it like this. Your retirement savings are like a boat, right? Sailing through the economy. Inflation is like a strong current that can push your boat off course and make your savings less valuable over time.
Okay, I can see that. So how does gold come into this boating adventure?
Gold is like an anchor. It keeps your boat steady even when those inflationary currents get strong. See, as the dollar loses value because of inflation, gold tends to go up in value. It's like they're on opposite sides of a scale.
So gold helps keep your savings from losing their buying power when prices are going up. Makes sense. What about the stock market, though? Everyone knows it can be pretty unpredictable. How does gold do when the market takes a dip?
That's where things get really interesting. Gold usually does the opposite of the stock market. When stocks go down, gold tends to go up. Investors see it as a safe haven, something stable they can turn to when things get rocky.
Why is that, though? Why does gold hold its value when other stuff is crashing?
It comes back to that tangible aspect we talked about. Gold is a limited resource. It has actual value, not just perceived value. They can't just print more of it like money. And it's been valuable for like centuries across different cultures and everything. So when people get nervous about the economy or the dollar, they turn to gold because it's something they can trust, something that's always been valuable.
So there's like a psychological element to it, too. It's not just a shiny metal. It's something people have faith in. But isn't gold still an investment, which means it comes with risks? What are the downsides of putting gold in your retirement plan?
You're right, there are always risks. And with gold, one of the main ones is that it doesn't give you a steady income like stocks or bonds do. It doesn't pay dividends or interest. Its value comes from its price in the market, which can fluctuate.
So it's not the best choice if you're looking for a regular income stream during retirement.
That's a good point. And even though it's good against inflation in the long run, gold prices can jump around in the short term too, depending on things like global demand, economic stuff, even political events.
So it's not a sure thing. You have to be prepared for some ups and downs.
Exactly. That's why it's super important to diversify your investments. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, right?
Right.
Find a mix of assets that fits your risk tolerance and what you want to achieve.
Talking about diversification, one thing I hear about gold IRAs is that they're only for the super rich. Is that true? Are there like really high minimum investments that average folks can't afford?
Not at all. That's a myth. Yeah, there are fees involved, but the minimum investment is often much lower than people think. Some providers even let you start small and add to it gradually.
So it's not just a rich person's game. That's good to know. What about the fees you mentioned? Can you give us an idea of what those might look like?
Sure, the main fees are setup fees when you open the account, storage fees for keeping your gold safe in an IRS-approved place, and then management fees for, well, managing your account.
Okay, that makes sense. How do those fees compare to, say, a regular IRA with stocks and bonds?
It really depends on who you go with, the provider, and what services they offer. But generally, a gold IRA might have slightly higher fees than a traditional IRA. But you're getting something unique, a tangible asset with all the benefits we've been talking about.
Right, you're paying for that security and peace of mind knowing you own that physical gold. But, wherever there's money, there are always those scam artists trying to take advantage.
Yeah.
What are some red flags to watch out for when you're looking at gold IRA providers?
Oh, that's so important. Always do your research. Choose a provider with a good reputation. One big red flag is when they pressure you to make a quick decision. If they don't give you time to think it through, be very careful.
So if they're rushing you, it's probably not a good sign. What else should raise a red flag?
Vague or confusing information about their fees. A good provider will be open and honest about all costs right from the beginning. They should explain everything clearly and be happy to answer your questions. If they're being evasive or it feels like there are hidden fees, that's a bad sign.
Transparency is crucial. What about guarantees? Should we be wary of providers who promise, like crazy high returns, or things that sound too good to be true?
Absolutely. No investment can guarantee a certain return, especially with precious metals. If they're making wild promises, it's a huge red flag, probably a scam. A legit provider will be honest about the risks, but they'll also focus on the long-term benefits of diversification and protecting your wealth.
So you want a provider who's more of a teacher than a salesperson? Someone who guides you and helps you make good decisions.
Yeah, exactly. Building trust is so important with financial decisions, especially something as big as a gold IRA. You want to feel confident that they have your best interests at heart.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. We've broken down what a gold IRA is, talked about its benefits as protection against inflation and market volatility, and we even talked about some of the concerns and potential risks. Before we move on to part two of our deep dive, I'd like to go back to something you said earlier about the historical performance of gold. Can you talk about that a little more? Like, how has gold done compared to other investments over, say, the last 50 years?
Great question. Let's take a look at the past and see how gold held up against those inflationary periods and market crashes we talked about. You might be surprised by what we find.
I'm definitely interested to hear this. Let's delve into the history of gold and see what lessons it holds for investors today.
All right, so looking back over the past 50 years, gold has done pretty well for itself, actually. There have been times when it's really taken off, especially when the economy was shaky. Like back in the 1970s, inflation was crazy high, right? Well, gold just skyrocketed. Its value went up by over 2,300%.
Whoa, 2,300%. That's insane. So it really was a safe haven when things were unpredictable.
It really was, and that's not the only time. If you look at how gold has performed over the long haul, it's consistently done better than inflation, which means investors were able to keep up their buying power.
That's good to know. But I'm guessing there were also times when gold didn't do as well, right? It's not like a magic solution or anything.
Oh, for sure, nothing's perfect. Gold has had its share of ups and downs, just like anything else. For instance, in the 80s and 90s, gold prices were pretty much flat, sometimes even went down a bit.
So what happened during those times? Why didn't it do as well?
Well, a bunch of factors can affect the price of gold. One is interest rates. When those go up, other investments like bonds start looking more attractive, so people don't buy as much gold.
Uh-huh.
Another thing is how strong the US dollar is. Gold is priced in dollars, so when the dollar is weak, gold tends to be worth more.
I see.
And the opposite happens when the dollar is strong.
It sounds complicated, like all these economic forces pushing and pulling.
It is, it is. That's why it's so important to talk to a financial advisor. You know someone who really knows their stuff. They can help you figure out your risk tolerance, how long you're planning to invest, and what you want to achieve with your money.
Right. It's not just about jumping into gold without thinking it through. You've got to make smart decisions based on your own situation.
Exactly. Now, to make this all a bit more real, let's talk about some real people who used gold in their retirement plans. Our guide has a couple of case studies, like Margaret, who was a retired executive. She had most of her savings in the stock market.
Okay, Margaret's story. So
her story is a perfect example of how gold can protect you when the market takes a dive. Back during the 2008 financial crisis, her stock portfolio lost a quarter of its value.
ouch, that's got to hurt, especially when you're close to retirement.
Yeah, it's rough. Luckily, Margaret had put some of her savings into a gold IRA, too. So while her stocks were losing value, the value of her gold actually went up. It helped make up for some of those losses and protected her overall wealth.
So it's like a buffer, kind of soften the impact of the stock market crash.
Yeah, exactly. It gave her some stability and peace of mind during a really tough time.
That's a great illustration of why spreading out your investments is so important. Now, what about that couple, John and Sarah? They were worried about inflation eating away at their retirement savings, right?
Right. They were getting close to retirement in the early 2000s, and inflation was on the rise. They were concerned that their savings wouldn't be enough to keep up with rising prices.
Yeah, that's a worry a lot of people have. Inflation can really sneak up on you.
It really can. So John and Sarah decided to put about 15% of their savings into a gold IRA to protect against inflation. And they stuck with that plan over time.
So how did that work out for them?
Well, as inflation went up, the value of their gold went up even faster. That helped them keep up with the rising cost of living and make sure their retirement income was enough.
So the gold kind of shielded their savings from inflation.
Exactly. Their decision to diversify with gold meant they could keep their standard of living throughout their retirement.
These are some really good examples of how a gold IRA can be helpful for retirees in different situations. But I bet some people are still on the fence, especially after hearing about all the details.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely important to think carefully about any investment you make.
So say someone's interested in a gold IRA, but they're feeling a bit lost. Where should they start?
I'd say start by doing some research, read up on it, check out reliable financial websites, maybe even talk to a financial advisor who specializes in gold IRAs.
Good advice. The more you know, the better, especially when it comes to your finances.
Absolutely. Take your time, ask lots of questions, and don't be shy about asking for help from experts.
Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of choosing a gold IRA provider in the last part of our deep dive, I wanted to go back to that idea of gold being a flight to safety. Can you explain that a bit more? Like, what kinds of historical events or economic trends have made people turn to gold, and how did gold react?
Oh, that's interesting. Throughout history, we've seen investors turn to gold over and over again when things get rough. Political turmoil, economic crises, even wars.
Okay, let's hear about those times when gold became the go-to asset. Take us back in time a bit.
Okay, so we've talked about how gold can be that steady rock in a financial storm, but let's get down to brass tacks for folks thinking, all right, this gold IRA thing sounds interesting, but how do I actually get one going? What's the process like?
Yeah, break it down for us. It's a big deal, trusting a company with a chunk of your retirement funds. What are the most important things to ask potential providers?
Great question. First things first. What's their reputation like? How long have they been around? What are their customers saying about them online and stuff?
Reputation matters, just like with any business. Okay, what about those fees? We've touched on setup, storage, management fees, but anything sneaky to watch out for? Any hidden costs?
Ah, good point. You always got to ask for a full breakdown of all the fees right from the start and any ongoing ones. Some places might try to tack on extra charges for things like, oh, buying or selling the gold, moving your money around, even closing your account.
Oh, wow, I hadn't thought about those. So full transparency is key. Then there's the gold itself, right? How can you be sure you're getting the real deal, not some fake stuff?
Absolutely crucial. You want to make sure they're selling you gold that the IRS approves, high quality bars or coins. Ask about how pure the gold is, how much it weighs, and if they use a reputable assayer, that's someone who tests metals to make sure they're legit.
Got it. Reputation, fees, gold quality. What else should we be thinking about?
Security, huge one. That gold needs to be kept safe and sound in an IRS-approved depository. Ask them about the security measures they have, insurance coverage, and their crack record. You want that investment locked down tight.
So it's like picking a bank for your gold. Got to be Fort Knox level security.
Exactly. And don't forget about good old-fashioned communication. You want a provider who responds quickly, keeps you in the loop, and answers all your questions clearly and patiently. It should feel like a good working relationship. You know, you trust their expertise.
So it's not just about the technical details of the gold IRA. It's about finding a partner you can rely on throughout the whole process. Now, as we wrap up our deep dive today, I want to leave our listeners with one last thought. Something to chew on, something bigger than just gold IRAs.
Love it.
What are you thinking?
Okay, so we've been talking about gold, right? It's a tangible thing, something that historically holds its value, protects wealth. But in today's world, things are changing so fast, right? Makes me wonder if there are other tangible assets out there that could do the same thing, maybe even have even more potential to grow.
Now, that's an interesting idea. Are you thinking about like real estate or commodities? Yeah, things like that. I mean, real estate, especially in places that are growing fast, that can be a good hedge against inflation. Plus, you can get rental income. Then you've got commodities, things like agricultural products or industrial metals. Those could be good for diversification too, and they might grow a lot as global demand goes up.
Yeah, I like that. It's about expanding our view, moving beyond just the usual stocks and bonds, and really exploring all the different ways we can invest.
Exactly. It's about putting together a retirement plan that's as unique as you are, something that reflects your own vision for the future. So for our listeners who are ready to start planning for their own retirement, what's the most important thing to remember from our deep dive into gold IRAs and all these other investment ideas?
I think the key takeaway is this: don't be afraid to think differently. Explore everything that's out there, do your homework, and find experts you can trust to guide you.
Wise words. And everyone, remember, this is just a starting point. Before making any big financial decisions, always, always talk to a qualified financial advisor. They can help you figure out what's best for your situation and create a plan that fits your goals and how much risk you're comfortable with.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Being informed is the key to having a secure and enjoyable retirement.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining us today for this fascinating look at gold IRAs and the world of alternative investments. Until next time, happy investing.